We're excited to welcome the new president of the Bankers Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Stick around, I'll be back with Richard Downie to discuss digital banking in Trinidad and Tobago.
Your strategy has to involve your mindset, and your strategy then involves the actions that you take to move you from where you are to where you want to be.
I'll start with what Visa isn't, right? Visa doesn't issue credit card. We don't issue credit. So Visa doesn't do that, which surprises a lot of people.
We'll use a phrase like, things changed, but things don't change. People change things. All the legislation that has been passed, somebody advocated for that. And so International Women's Day is to commemorate that history of women making change.
Several of the banks have started to migrate their existing debit card portfolio to chip and pin EMV technology. So the SMEs are going to benefit from a wide range of customers who previously did not have a credit card but only had a debit card.
Good morning and welcome to the live series Straight Off the Bat, a show that covers the need to revive, survive and adapt to the new normal of COVID-19. Join us on Thursdays as we speak to individuals across multiple industries who will help you understand financial literacy and education. If you're joining us on LinkedIn, thank you. Don't forget to like and follow the page to continue seeing content that will help you manage your money. Today, we are discussing digital banking in Trinidad and Tobago with the new president of the Bankers Association of Trinidad and Tobago, Richard Downie. Mr. Downie is the managing director of RBC Royal Bank Trinidad and Tobago Limited and is the chairman of RBC Merchant Bank Caribbean Limited. He started his career as an IT consultant with KPMG, formerly Pete Marwick, which I just learned is the P and M in KPMG, and he joined Royal Bank as a programmer analyst, and over the past 25 years, he has worked across several areas of banking through various management and leadership roles. He holds an executive MBA, an MSc in computer science, and BSc mathematics and computer science from the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus. He's also a fellow hockey player. That's like, what? Talk about Trinidad being small, and enjoys hiking and long distance activities. So maybe he can give me some advice on the Curacao Marathon that I'm training for in November. I don't know, we'll see. But let's stick to banking for now. Hi Richard, how are you and where in the world are you? You are on mute, so you may have to unmute yourself there. That's 21st century. There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. Yes.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Thank you for having me on the program. Yeah, I'm in the Mara Valley. I actually work from home with the current conditions. I pop into the office, the odd event, depending if I have to conduct certain activities, operate what we call remotely possible. So that's where I am, and share my insights and thoughts along where we are and where we are going.
Awesome. So the fact that you're able to work remotely with your current position means that that space of digital transformation is something that we're going to address. And looking at your resume and your CV, as people say, being in the IT space and then shifting over to banking, what has been sort of the biggest shift for you and the change for those two industries?
Yeah. When I joined the IT field, I was a geek. I love program activities, and I lived for it very well in IT and moved up. As I got into what I call, just around doing the executive 90s, it was like a people person as well. So executive MBA, and realized I had a knack for taken on other types. So with that, I got the more in what you call bank operations, the bank, and then I started to be back and forth between running and helping drive certain things within the tech. So it's a natural move to move out of the core depth into things like the bank operations. Then led me to further take for the last 5 years to actually sales activities of the bank. So I'm the regional operating officer before this role, all the initiatives that support our sales, and how they go about that within the high net business across the Caribbean. So exposure, got exposure to the credit aspect, but I knew everything about payments, I knew every operations of the bank. So it was a bit of trepidation, what it's going to involve, step into that space. So it's been a journey for me. I'm enjoying it and doing it.
Awesome. So morning to Tanya and Melanie in the comments. They are shouting us out today. And because this is live, we're just trying to make sure that everybody is hearing. So I'm having a little bit of a breakup issue with the audio. So I don't know if the audience is seeing it. Put in the comments and let us know. We're going to work on that after the break. All right. So when it comes to this conversation around banking, especially with the world we're living in now, digital banking is not something that we can actually have an option for, because we're trying to shift into this space of how can I do everything that needs to be done without having to, shower, put on a mask, go in your car, and have to, put the hand sanitizer, wash your hands again. So when it comes to digital banking, what exactly does that mean?
Is pretty simply for a customer to interact with their bank through various methods. You can use desktop at home, if you have a tablet, any sort of computer or digital. Now most persons operate smartphone with a banking application, a smartphone device. Seeks to do is to provide the customer to do what we call data that are able to be efficiently and fast. This prevents you from having to step in, go to find parking. Go through is not as difficult, but really given that consumer they transact with their bank, almost would say banking in the palm of your hand. It's just different ways of making that banking capability and banking actually and readily available using digital. It's almost kind of ubiquitous.
Awesome there. So we're having a bit of a technical issue because you're breaking up, and I want to hear exactly what you have to say. Is there any way for you to connect to different Wi-Fi or?
Maybe I'll change the headphones and see if that makes.
Yeah, because we're live, guys, and we want to make sure that the conversation that we're going to have around digital banking you can hear, because it's extremely important for you to understand the programs that are available for you to not have to jump in a taxi and go and line up in a bank, because there are options for you. And for me personally, I wouldn't be able to run my business without digital banking. I literally do everything from the comfort of an AC, which is so important with the sun, because the sun is not normal. All right, so Richard is back. Let's see if we have. All right, so let's see if we have a better audio, because it could be the Bluetooth. All right, so we were talking about digital banking, and this idea of having access to your funds, because we are in a culture where we want to see our money. What advice would you have
Yeah.
for that person who has this desire to go and have cash and see their money and be able to say, okay, let me hand this to the teller? What do you tell that person?
Okay, just I think the iPad is having some streaming problems. It's delayed. So maybe just repeat the question for me.
You sound so much better. This is perfect. So I was talking about, the idea of having cash, because we usually have this tendency to want to see our money. But
Yes.
I personally,
Yes.
I don't know if it's because I'm a millennial, but I prefer to see the digits versus the cash. I had to handle cash
Right.
yesterday. I was like, money, I have to put hand sanitizer. So what advice would you give to somebody who is very specific about seeing their money and not necessarily comfortable with the idea of digital banking?
Right. Yes. I put it to the issue back to, if we remember, debit cards. When we first started having debit cards in the late 90s, it became one where what you would find is that people were afraid to go to the point of sale device at the grocery. It's like, I'm not going to get embarrassed and wait to swipe a card and do all of those things. And, I equated back to that. It's a lot about building confidence. So persons do like to know that they can see what their balance is, and they like to see the cash. But there are a lot of risk. One, currently more health risk around walking with cash, because cash goes through many persons, everyone touches it, and it's just a natural risk in dealing with physical cash. Using the debit cards now, some of the banks provide contactless cards that you can really just tap at the point of sale as well to do basic purchases for coffee, your breakfast, small items. You don't even have to touch the point of sale device, which is an added benefit. And of course, digital banking easier. I pay most of my suppliers, things I have to get. I purchase things purely online, or I transfer funds to their account if they're not a retailer. So I'll tell them, send me the invoice, and I will send money to you, because you can transfer funds locally to other local banks to clients. So you use local.
So we are, okay. I think what we'll do is we'll just go to, okay, I think he's back. Yes. Hi, there we go. Let's try it again. So you're talking about local banks and transferring. Oh, no. All right, so we're going to go on a little break, and we will be right back, because I want to have a conversation around the digital space and the trends within Trinidad Tobago. So we'll be right back. Hi, welcome back to the Straight Off the Bat series, a show that covers the need to revive and survive and adapt to the new normal of COVID-19. We're here with the brand new, fresh off the paper, newspaper, president of the Bankers Association of Trinidad Tobago. We're having some technical difficulties, but this conversation is so important. We're going to try this again. So let's get Richard into the conversation. Here we go. All right, so let's try this again. Let's talk about digital banking and as it relates to how it's impacted banks in the digital space. Because digital transformation is such a trending conversation, but it's so important when it comes to the financial space. How have you seen this impact, especially with your 25 plus years in this industry? What have you seen? What can you share with us?
Thanks, Pauline. I mean, we continue to see certainly the benefits of easy access to our client base, to the business community. They actually, get benefits in terms of getting transactions through much faster. It just allows for easy settlement between businesses as well, between member banks. So it's added a lot of benefits and opportunities. It increases your, or let's put more, reduces the risk for you as a client in having to deal with cash and go in your car, go in a line to deposit money. We've seen of odd times where clients will be in the newspapers, being held up in a car park, going to deposit funds, or just coming out from the car park, taking out cash, big sums of cash for business purposes. So interacting digitally more and more is becoming really beneficial. Certainly within the pandemic, we've seen the benefits of it, because what it means, you minimize the need to physical interaction. I can do what I need to do online and not have to go and join a line outside a bank and then inside a bank. You could order your groceries, you can order your meals online as well. So really good benefits that, providing that capability to our clients.
Awesome. Now, we usually have a Q&A in the last 15 minutes, but I find this conversation in comment section is so relevant to what we are talking about right now. I want to start with Melanie's point, which I find is so interesting. She says that people get confused with the terms digital banking versus internet banking versus online banking. That's a very valid point, Melanie. The use of these terms interchangeably frightens some folks. Can Richard please tie some of these terms together to help promote layman understanding, which includes me? That's an awesome question, Melanie. Richard?
Yeah, sure. So online banking was where we started originally. And, it was a way of dialing and connecting to a system to get information on how can you get it. More and more than internet meant, in those days, you used to actually dial in to a connection, right? It was the old, you remember you used to dial in a modem. You had a modem connected, you had to connect and dial in and all of that. And really rudimentary things. Look at the balance. You didn't even have things like bank statements available online and so on. As you get into internet banking, well, we started to use more the internet. Internet became the method to connect to the bank. Of course, everyone was afraid of the internet, because if I'm going through the internet, who else is seeing all of my financial information? And of course, you provided security, and persons still have that concern around that sort of information, So the method of access just continued to change. Digital banking really went to the next layer. Yes, it's internet related, but really the digital aspect is not just transactional natures of transactions, but actually, as an example, being able to open an account or request a loan. These things, you could submit your forms online digitally. So everything is, being placed now in a digital space to transact digitally. I can sign documents digitally and I can have them uploaded. As we go a little deeper, I could probably get into some of the legislation or directions. We, as Bankers Association, are working to get further refinements to the legislation to help our consumers be able to build further confidence as they interact purely digitally out there. So that's the kind of the difference. It was a building block to where we are now digitally.
I think that, first of all, thank you so much for clarifying that. That's so awesome because with the evolution of words, things, awesome has a different meaning, epic has a different meaning now. So that's a great question, Melanie. And I wanted to continue on what you're saying with, legislation, because I think I speak on behalf of the individuals watching this now and on the recording. We want to know how you're going to make this easier for us. So let us know. Give us the 411 exclusive right now, Richard.
Yeah. So under Bankers Association, we continue to try to modernize the payment space. And we are working with our key stakeholders, our central bank, certainly the Ministry of Finance, and the recently established Ministry of Digital Transformation. And just yesterday, we had a pretty great video online session, which included Minister Bacchus on the program with us. RBC hosted this program looking at our digital journey and where we were going as a guest speaker. And what it sought to highlight is persons are thinking digital, pretty in a box. They're not going wider. But as we continue to improve digital transformation and digital banking, which should be one key aspect of it, is how do we make things more convenient in different spheres, not just in banking. In your online services, you want to request your driver's permit. You want to get a new ID card. Things like that should be able to be done digitally. You want to pay your taxes. Do I have to really go online to do so? Can I not do my tax return online? Now, we've seen, I've certainly been using it about 3-4 years now, where I can do my tax return on build out of the legislative infrastructure. So what we'll be looking at is there are a couple legislative bills before us that are being amended. There are the Electronic Transaction Act and the Data Protection Act. These things will make sure as you transact in this digital space, you as a consumer will be properly protected, and we confirm where the rights are and things of that nature. So it's just a little more tightening of things like that. We will expect that it gives more credence to using a digital signature. So when I sign something digitally, I am held liable for it. The contract is upheld. So these things, you're going to buy a car, you sign on a contract. So you want to know that these things can be held, that I have to pay for the car. Similarly, if I sign digitally to receive the car, I want to make sure the person selling the car that it has the same legal strength as me signing on the dotted line, what we call a wet signature, because you're using a pen. So these little changes will certainly give us that more impetus to move forward in the digital space.
Wow, I'm going to add that to my vocabulary, a wet signature. That's so interesting. I've never heard that terminology before. If you're just joining us, we're here with Richard, the new president of the Bankers Association of Trinidad Tobago. We are, trying to work live with the technology, and we may have a delay, but bear with us. I think this information is very important. And Ray, I see your comment. I'm coming to it just now, but I just want to ask another question based on what was initially asked by Melanie. Now, when it comes to opening a bank account, there's a lot of memes. I'm not going to address them at this point in time, but it has a general consensus of frustration. Can you share with us who are laymen in terms of the things that has to be done based on legislation? Because we don't understand that you are doing your job, and this is coming from a legal perspective. So, how does this work? Is it a case of central bank tells the banks this is what needs to be done, and this is the information that you have to get in order to open a bank account? Why, basically?
Certainly. Well, the legislative framework just allows, with like other areas, how do we get to operate and feel comfortable and safe? Most persons don't realize we have all this legal legislation in place for different things. we write checks and a check is accepted. Why? A check can be returned. Why? Legislation dictates that, right? And the banks are guided by it. So what we do is work with government, we work with central bank as the intermediary, and say, they may reach out to us and say, what will make sense? What can you do? Will this work? And we help build on being stakeholdering, lobbying for the changes to make it practical and feasible for us to be able to interact in that space. So it's almost like, think of the hockey field. Your hockey field is, the difference between grass and turf, right? AstroTurf is the high-end, fancy way to play. It's a nice surface. Grass, you can play with a lot of knots in the grass, mud all over the place, ball sticking in it, and difficult to play the game. If you think of the AstroTurf, you lobby to get it, you know why you need it, it's going to improve the game, we're going to be more efficient at playing, and safer for the players as well. The ball is not going to hit a knot in the grass and fly and break my nose, as which happened in Tobago many years ago. So legislation is kind of stating, yes, going forward, AstroTurfs is what you need to play the game. You need to wear shin guards, you need to wear a mouth guard, basic things that make it safe. Legislation is like that for us in the digital space. Make sure there are rules that guide everyone who wants to operate in the space. And you would see the difference here now, where if we go further in the digital, people start to talk cryptocurrencies and so on. Not regulated at all, right? It's like, it's pretty open. And there's a space for that. And we do see that as potentially, in the future, more and more persons will gravitate to operating in cryptocurrencies based on the benefits and the capabilities they provide. But currently, the digital banking capabilities really making it easy to interact. Legislation will help support us by getting government to pass certain laws that we can then, based on you signing a contract or accepting it online, will state, I'm okay to transact digitally, and if something go wrong, I am liable. Once I am not, I am liable depending on the transaction and how it originated. If I can show that I did not know of it, somebody hacked into my account, there are protections, data protection, there are laws to help protect the client to say, I did not do this transaction. No different to your credit card. When someone skims your card, you go into the bank and you do a chargeback and you say, I confirm I never did the transaction. We will track to see how we can, manage those situations and protect you, the client, in using those new capabilities. So hopefully that helps a little bit in why we need the legislation so that we can build on the capabilities.
And I want to tap into that, quarter century of life you've had in this space. I want to understand, I could imagine the amount of changes you've seen. And I want to continue that legislation conversation because, you turn on your computer, you can connect to the internet, you're not thinking about the fiber that's up, wherever, down in the earth, in the sea. You just know that this is working. And it's similar to when you want something done as a consumer, you just want it to work. So you don't see the nitty-gritty under the engine. And within that same conversation from a legislation perspective, maybe there was a big uproar with when ATMs first came into the space. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, this is going to cause the machine, and everybody starts to reference Terminator, the machines are coming. And now we're going into this space in digital banking where, we have to have this conversation from a legal perspective, but then from a consumer perspective, what suggestions would you give to that consumer who may feel frustrated that they're not getting their stuff done? And there's all this stuff happening under the engine. What would you, if you had to sit down and have a conversation, where would it start?
Yeah. So what we would find, everything will have hiccups in terms of how it operates. You go into the bank and maybe operationally the teller did the transaction in error, posted the wrong amount to your account, things of that nature. You yourself might have made a mistake, signed the wrong amount on the check. How do you protect yourself against things like this. So, as things unfold, what you would find is banks, the efficiency that you gain by creating this digital method of operating really helps the client, who once they learn and are able to understand how to use it, gets a comfort level. So I do understand that many consumers locally are still not comfortable with operating in a digital space. We're trying to certainly improve. Okay, so I guess I got disconnected. Okay. Yeah, what I was saying is, on the consumer side, in terms of building consumer confidence, education would be a key aspect to help the clients understand how best they can operate, within there, showing them how they can operate in the various mechanisms. And well, like everything else, once you learn to use a particular mechanism, a particular device, you build confidence with it.
I have some questions here in the comments, and I can actually answer them. But as a consumer, I can answer them because I've experienced, some of these questions and answers. But as the president of Bankers Association of Trinidad Tobago, you should answer them. But before we get into that, Ray, I'm coming to you now. We're going to go on a quick break, and on our way back, we're going to have a conversation about the delays in transferring from bank to bank via online and the deterrence of individuals who may think that the process should be faster. So we'll be right back.
Okay.
You're not trying to sell to everybody. You're trying to sell to a specific niche of people. You're trying to engage.
And welcome back. Thank you for joining us today. This is the Bankers Association of Trinidad Tobago LinkedIn page if you're watching. Hey guys, we're on YouTube as well as Facebook. If this is the first time you're joining us, this is called Straight Off the Bat, a show that covers the need to revive, survive, and adapt to the new normal of COVID-19. Today we're talking about digital banking in Trinidad Tobago with the new president of the Bankers Association of Trinidad Tobago, Richard Downie. Trust me when I say you're not going to find these conversations anywhere else. So make sure to like and follow. If you're on YouTube and you're watching this on replay, just hit that subscribe button. It's okay. It's fine. Just subscribe. It's fine. It's okay. I'll wait. All right. So make sure not to miss a live show and head over to the comments if you have any questions. Even if you're watching this on a replay, we will answer them. So welcome back, Richard. We are having a conversation around digital banking, and specifically this question from Ray. We're gonna bring it up. Currently, the delays in transfer from bank via online, I think it's bank to bank, is a deterrence to individuals, and there's a focus to make this process faster. Basically, asking if there's a to make this process faster. I'm gonna add to this before you answer, and as somebody who has accounts in multiple banks, it takes 24 hours, sometimes less. So I'm just like, Ray, why is this question a question? But Richard, answer.
Okay, so thanks for the question, Ray. And I think it's a building block, because Pauline, what has happened, not all banks were at the same level over the last year or so. And more, we are seeing the capability that we can have the ability to actually transact funds locally. So while you may have online the ability to move funds, in the background, it could be a manual step. So we have to remember that. So this is where the full digital comes in. The full digital is you transact online. I'm going to call a system called ACH. I don't know if you've heard of it before, Automated Clearinghouse. This is what really is a foundational aspect that allows, if you connect to that mechanism, you will transact and get your funds the next day in the next bank, in the other bank. So all banks, as soon as they can make that connection from your online, your digital bank solution and connect to that engine in the back end, means you can get the funds either same day, depending on the clearing window, or next day. As an example, in Aruba, they've gone a step ahead. Aruba does instant payment. Using the same mechanism, you can do the transaction and they guarantee you within a minute or seconds that the payment arrives at the next bank, called instant payments. We have that as one of our agenda items. Hopefully in the 2022 space, we are able to get there. But it's a building block, and you can't just take one step. All member banks have to be ready as we step into this, because certain regulations have to be in place, what you call the clearing, the settlement. If you don't settle right away, can I return an item? How do you return an item if you just send the money? Is it final? So if I made a mistake and Pauline, I send you the money, can I ask back for it? Well, you now have it, right? So it's your money. Even if I did it in error, what are the grounds do I have to make a claim to get my funds back? So these will be things they'll have to work through. Legislation helps a bit there as well. But to Ray's point, yes, there have been some delays at times. Persons sometimes try to also use it to pay credit cards in other banks. Most of the benefits you would see, credit cards can be paid same day within your own bank. But if you have your savings or checking account in bank A and a credit card in bank C, it will not necessarily happen within that shorter time. Those are different hooks that have to be now connected. So it becomes, again, that building block of what else can we now connect to make these a bit more seamless. One or two member banks may have the ability to allow it a bit more seamless. Others are building the capability. So we continue to get there, similar to wiring of funds internationally. Most banks locally use the payment gateway called SWIFT, and that SWIFT gateway typically turns around payments within 24 hours as well, roughly 48 hours, once there are no sanctions or anything holding up the payment. As you know, these big member banks have to go through sanction checks because there are certain things that we must ensure the funds where it's going to. It's a country that we are allowed to send funds. Unfortunately, certain countries are denied from us sending funds to them. That's just the international laws that are in place. So it goes through these validations and these checks, and then the funds would land within the account based on the information provided.
Awesome. Thank you for responding to that, Ray. Let me know if you are clear on that response. And we're going to head over to Radhika's question about digital banking. Does digital banking allow users to apply and close approved loans?
At this point, most focus on the digital is to make it easier to apply for a loan online, but we've not reached the stage at this juncture where it's finalized. So you can initiate, send all your documents, have it uploaded, and typically an appointment will be sought where you come in and you do the wet signature to get, as you're learning the term now, Pauline, you do the wet signature to finalize it. The next level of digital banking should be to have all that done seamless. So I upload my documents, you validate my documents digitally, and I'm able to transact and formalize that loan digitally. So we are going there. Most banks are working towards that phase. Ability to close a loan, you may be able to initiate the process, but again, in closing off or paying off a loan typically represents the ability to make a payment, a special payment, because as you know, contractually in a loan, you do indicate how you would pay for the loan and over what period of time. So if I'm paid for a loan over 2 years, after 1 year I decide I got some access to some funds, I rather pay it off. It's not just as easy to say, take the payment and close off. At this juncture, the close off amount to be paid could be different. So you do need to have some sort of interaction with the loan officer who can walk you through, okay, you had 50,000 outstanding. Because you're now paying it off, the principal might be 45,000. Where do we debit for those funds? And you sign to agree to pay off, and that happens. So typically that is what we call a more complex transaction, and things like that will warrant the interaction with someone within the bank personnel.
So just to add on to that question from Radhika, is it a case of, you mentioned earlier, for those who are just joining us, there was a conversation on legislation and changes. Would it be a case of legislation being a factor into having to get that sort of in-person signature in order to be approved and to close that loan? Is that part of the process?
Right. So the legislation will help support moving from a wet signature to having it be accepted as a digital signature. So once you get that capability, and some of it is there, so don't get me wrong, we do have some of that capability now. When we talk to our lawyers, we all have lawyers. So the lawyers within the banks would say, okay, it covers you, but only so far. So there are little loopholes that need to be tweaked in the legislation to cover wider aspects of it and to make it more final. So that once I accept your digital signature online, fine, we can take your instruction and pay off the loan. You would say the funds are sitting in my account. Please pay off the loan. I confirm and authenticate that you are the person requesting the loan to be paid off and not somebody else, because you have what you call person's social engineering, somebody representing you doing these things. So that's where a lot of the cybersecurity aspects of things help to protect the banks and the consumer, that we can validate you are who you are digitally, and that when we get your digital signature, it's as good as signing on the dotted line.
I like the fact that you brought up that term social engineering. And for those who may not know what that is, can you share with our audience?
Sure. So social engineering started back in the day. If you ever watched the movie, I can't remember his name, a famous actor, the one who was in the Titanic. Forgot his name, that actor.
Leonardo DiCaprio?
DiCaprio. He acted in a movie where he was
Catch Me If You Can.
Yes, as a pilot, right?
Yeah, which is based on a real story.
It is based on a real story. And he flew around the world for free, for many years. And it's the concept of, started pretty simple. I will engineer to act as someone else, either in person or on a phone, and now digitally. So the concept of social engineering is that I will gather information about you, and I could call in to be Pauline, and this is Pauline calling, and you'll ask me 5 questions, and I know the 5 answers. Oh, well, that's Pauline. Pauline will know these 5 answers. So I've just socially engineered to be Pauline. So a lot of things as we do more online, persons socially engineer to find ways to gather this piece of information. So as banks, we have to make sure we are ahead of the fraudster, and we continue to increase security capabilities and build cybersecurity things to make it difficult for someone to hack into you, into your account. And the old ways with Leonardo DiCaprio was things around acting as a pilot, and then there was one about writing the check. I write a check, no one will catch me because the check, moves ahead. By the time they realize it's a false check, I've gotten the goods and I've moved ahead. So this is nothing new. This existed way back in the day. The method of doing it now is online. And some of it actually still happens through what we call check fraud. And banks have mechanisms within which to identify the false checks and how to pull them out and to block them. So social engineering is a term that continues to be there. It just has morphed into methods of what we call skimming of cards or of hacking of your account for digital banking and so on. But we continue to put mechanisms, security mechanisms, to protect you, the consumer, in interacting with us through these mechanisms digitally.
And for the person watching this going, you see why I'm not going online? You see why I don't have a digital banking because of this? What would you tell that person?
No, It's about build confidence, right? That's why the consumer protections are there to protect you, the consumer, and education I think is key as well. Skimming is about going on now. Does that prevent somebody from using a debit card? Not at all. But everyone knows, shake the card reader, look to see if it's your camera. Why? Because education. We increase education to the public. You are more mindful. Persons used to come up and help you do the transaction. I do not need help. Stand back, please. I do not need help at the ATM. So you build confidence, you learn how to use it, and place. Digital, the education will be one that we have to help you, the consumer, feel comfortable using it. And that's going to be a key driver for us as well as government to build that capability. No one wants an elderly one or any hot sun at the end of the month to receive their old age pension check or things of that nature. Why? You should be able to be comfortable at home, sign on to see it's the first of the month, my funds are there, let me pay my utility bills, fine, and let me go and pay for groceries. You should feel confident you can do that digitally and spend time with your friends or watching your latest soap operas or whatever it might be, going in the garden and doing work. It just gives you back that half day that you spent getting in a taxi, getting somebody to pick you up, having you stand in a line and do things of that nature. So I do think as we are able to explore and educate the average consumer, these are benefits that they will get out of the whole process.
That's such an important point because we are in a digital age, and a lot of times there's a lot of reasons why you shouldn't, join the space because you see all this negative publicity. But at the end of the day, you have more to gain being in a digital space than not. And when it comes to trends within the banking space, what's the number one trend that you seeing right now?
The number one trend, maybe I just got the last end of that call. What about the trend, where digital
in the digital space for banks in Trinidad
is going,
Tobago?
digital banking?
What's the trend there? Did you hear me?
Yeah, the trend certainly is to continue. The trend will be to continue to grow capability within the digital. So the issue about loans, if we don't really do much in the loan space. So we want to be able to offer those capabilities. We want to be able to, right now, most banks provide you electronic
I believe we are experiencing a delay here from. Okay, so if you're just joining us, we're here with the new president of the Bankers Association of Trinidad and Tobago. We're experiencing some technical difficulties, delay there. So we're going to go on a quick break, and when we're back, we're going to ask the new president of the Bankers Association of Trinidad and Tobago what his vision is for his tenure for the next 2 years. So we'll be right back.
But that was like my first experience with money. Very, very first experience.
I've been in banking since I was a teenager.
Welcome back to Straight Off the Bat. We're going to get straight into it. If we could just bring Richard back in. He had some thoughts that it was interrupted by technology. So you want to finish that off before we get into your vision?
Certainly. The trending we've been seeing is going towards look at modernizing, continue to modernize the payment space. So transacting beyond the typical transaction, going to doing the ability to do loans more conveniently online as well, request loans, things of that nature. You will be seeing things like that taking place.
Awesome. So shout out to Ren and Melanie and Ray for being in the comment section and letting us know that it's been very informative for them. And as it relates to your new role, Richard, insert the entry of a of a theatre. What is your vision for your new role as the president of the Bankers Association of Trinidad Tobago?
Thanks, Pauline. I've been speaking to some of it. I think education building around digital and the need and the ease with which we should be able to use digital will be key. So I do want to have as a benefit out of my tenure to build the digital capability. And this is not just for banking. I think working with the other stakeholders, the various government agencies, really making it easier to do business. I know that's a bit of a tagline within Trinidad as well, because we encounter problems. Businesses encounter problems having to get documents, and that could be a whole different discussion by itself. How difficult it is to set up an account, how difficult it is to get a bond or a guarantee and things of that nature. So our capability to be more digitally capable and available is a key strategy for me in the next 2 years. But for that to happen, we can put all the infrastructure and all the capability. Customer education will be key to make that happen. So we will continue to partner, collaborate, and work with all our stakeholders and try to leave no one behind in the next 2 years.
I feel like you're talking to me when you spoke about opening the account. That's a off the camera conversation. Now, I want to sort of end this session with a story because I'm seeing within my space, because I'm in a digital space, digital marketing in specific, and a lot of times I get a lot of why go on social media, right? So there's this fear. And I see this similarity with shifting across in digital banking. And I was at my bank organizing something with my loan, and someone came to the person I was speaking to because they're trying to get through quickly. And within their transaction that they wanted to do, the person was asking them, what type of transaction? And he said, you can use the ATM, right? And there was this shock. There was a shock of what? So as a consumer, a lot of times, because we're so busy with scrolling through Instagram and Facebook, we're not aware of the actual options that are available within your banking services. So what advice would you give to somebody who may feel frustrated by the long-winded process, when in actuality there's this wealth of information that's available, but they're not connected? How can they find that?
Certainly, most banks have various websites that promote their products and services. That really helps a lot in terms of understanding what's possible. They have advice centers or what we call call centers as well. That capability help you to know, I can just go to the ATM and deposit a check, or I can go to ATM and transfer funds from one account to the next. I don't necessarily need to go inside. More easier is, of course, doing it digitally on a phone. Very simple. And I mean, I typically, when I do calls within the bank, when I do roundtables with different staff groups and so, first question I ask them, we are the ambassadors of things like digital. How many of us are on digital? Put up your hand. And you typically get, maybe 2 years ago, you might get 25%. Next year, how many of us are digital? 50%. And I said, but you are the ambassador. How can you explain to your client the ease with which they can operate? So yes, the client and our frontline employees are there to help you. But easier than that, you have the advice centers you call in. You have our websites that explain your products and services that are offered. So those are mechanisms that you should use that continue to kind of highlight what capabilities are there. But I think a quick call, to an advice center helps as well. That telephone technology still has its benefits. And if not, you can search. We're all very good at Googling and searching, is the bank open? What hours are the bank opening? Where are the branches in the bank? We go through painstaking efforts to make sure that information is up to date. So if I open a new branch in some part of Trinidad, you say, I'm going down my Yarrow. all right, there's a branch there, so on the weekend I can get cash at the ATM. You may just want to do those things, you know. These are methods that you can just find out the latest offerings that are being provided. Just checking the websites is one of the benefits along with the advice centers.
It's awesome to hear that story about, you know, raising your hands because we're asking people to adopt technology. So we should be part of that team as well. And I'm sure in your space in the IT industry, you know, it's just very important to be in it in order to adopt it as well. And I want to close off with, you know, some advice from your perspective, again, being in IT as well as quarter century in the space that you're in now, for the SMEs who are trying to figure out and navigate whatever this is, because we're open, we're not open, you know, it's difficult for small business owners in Trinidad and Tobago to figure out what's happening. And then on top of that, they have to learn this new technology and they may get frustrated. Any words of advice for that person?
Yes, I would say, you know, go to your particular relationship managers for the SME space, you know, small to medium enterprise organizations, or an entrepreneur now setting up. There are a lot of payment solutions. The basic ones we know are the point of sale device, but there are various aspects that have been created since e-commerce we all speak about. And we have all these capabilities available locally now. So, you know, start with an email. If you don't have, try to reach out to, if you have your relationship manager, someone who can guide you what your particular bank offers. And what you would find, you'll be amazed that you can do a lot of these things locally now. And there are benefits by doing it locally naturally, because once you can connect locally, you have the ability to offer your services internationally through an e-commerce site. You build a simple website. Maybe you're building craft items. Maybe you're growing flowers and you want to export the flowers. You need the ability to say, well, maybe I want to do that via e-commerce. You put pictures of the various flowers you offer, you know, and there are a lot of entrepreneurial things we can do. We have the capability, we have the infrastructure in Trinidad. I think it's persons just wanting to go about doing it and building on these capabilities. And there will be niche markets that they can look into. Your bank can help you certainly around the aspects of using e-commerce and other capabilities to connect to the world to transact.
And on that positive note, Richard, thank you so much for joining us today. Niran, I saw your comment and we're going to answer it off of this because we have to close off. Once again, thank you so much to Richard Downie for joining us today and sharing insight into the digital banking world of Trinidad Tobago. For everything mentioned today, make sure to check into the links in the comments, and you also want to sign up to be notified for the next live show, which is the survival assessment tips for small businesses with Shani Duncan Falconer from GMB. As always, be sure to like and follow our page, especially LinkedIn, because we just joined there and I think that you'll get some value out of it. So don't miss a single live show. And again, thanks for joining us today and I'll see you soon. Bye, guys.